The bugling stopped 4 days ago. Most elk hunters in your unit have already pulled out, but you're still there. But you're not calling anymore. You're not even trying to locate a bull by sound. You're sitting 60 yards off the edge of a dark timber bench, watching a meadow drainage below you, because you know this bull has to eat. You know exactly where he's going to walk to get there. Now, when bulls go silent, most elk hunters do one of two things. They either keep calling into dead air, trying to fire up a bull that isn't going to answer, or they quit and go home. Neither one works, right? The calling game is over. The hunters who fill tags when September goes quiet aren't the ones calling louder. They're the ones who found the transition zone between where a bull sleeps and where he eats, and they got themselves into it before he moved there. This episode breaks down how to find elk feeding areas, bedding areas, and the transition zone in between them. That transition is where you kill a silent bull. It's been 34 years hunting and guiding western big game across open basins, dark timber, canyon systems, and high alpine country, and 30 years as a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach, working with athletes at every level, including years competing as an elite athlete myself. Every athlete I've ever worked with or coached under heavy pressure did the same thing. They got quieter, they got more deliberate, and they stopped giving away information. A September bull under pressure does exactly that. He doesn't stop running his pattern, he stops announcing it. The rut window is still open. A September bull who goes silent is still biologically primed, still territorial, still seeking, still moving between feed and bed on a daily schedule, driven by the same urges that were making him bugle 4 days ago. Something external probably flipped the switch on that sound. It could be hunting pressure, too many calls from too many hunters and the drainage who've educated the bull to associate that sound with danger. It could be smoke moving through the country, shifting elk behavior and suppressing activity. It could be a weather front or heat that pushed elk onto a nighttime schedule so they're in cover before shooting light ever opens. It could be predator pressure that's made every animal in the drainage quiet or cautious. Or it could be a herd bull who's tending cows and has no reason to advertise his location. The rut didn't end, he just stopped talking. What doesn't change is the pattern. A September bull, vocal or silent, still has to eat, still has to sleep. He's moving between those two things every day on the most efficient, most concealed route he can find. And that route doesn't disappear because he stopped bugling. His biology still demands food, and his body still requires secure bedding cover between feeding windows. The loop runs whether he announces it or not. Your job is to find the loop. Elk feeding areas in September are pretty specific. Sometimes they're a little bit higher elevation meadows or open benches with quality grass and forbs. Sometimes it's south-facing slopes that hold nutrition into the season longer, ridge tops with accessible browse. Sometimes it's water near good food can concentrate that movement, or a seep or a creek within a half mile of a productive feeding area, all worth checking out every time. You're not looking for where elk could feed, you're looking for where they are feeding right now, and that shows up in the sign. Fresh tracks at the meadow edge, fresh poop. Soft and dark means recent, right? Dried and pale means old. Browse lines in the same height across the same stretch of open ground. A worn game trail entering the meadow from the timber above, packed enough to see from 50 yards out. Those aren't just historical clues. They're a current picture of where a bull is living and moving. Confirm the feeding area is active and you've got one end of the pattern. Elk bedding. That's security cover, right? Dark timber on a north-facing slope, canyon heads, thick deadfall benches, ridge spines where they can see down a canyon and catch thermals rising. A bull who's gone quiet under pressure isn't bedding in the open, probably. Not that easy, accessible country. He's bedding in the places that are hardest to reach and hardest to approach without being detected. The same places a pressured bull always uses when he's dialed his behavior back and gone defensive. On a topo map, you're looking for steep north-facing timber above your confirmed feeding area, benches hidden behind ridge lines, canyon heads with dense vegetation that won't show up as huntable terrain to a lot of people. Those are areas that require real effort to access, and that's exactly why a pressured bull uses them. Now you've found the other end of your pattern. Hey, if you hunt public land elk and you're tired of grinding through random seasons, I built the elk hunting series of ebooks for you. Most hunters don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack a system. And that's exactly why I built the elk hunting ebook series as a complete progressive framework for Western elk hunters who are done guessing and ready to hunt with intention. Volume 1 is going to be Foundations and Reality. I reset your mindset and expose the assumptions that quietly wreck seasons. In Volume 2, Finding Elk and Understanding Pressure, you'll learn how elk actually move under pressure so you can anticipate instead of react. In Volume 3, Terrain, Wind, and Position, I break down how to use landscape and thermals to consistently create opportunities. In Volume 4, Calling, Silence, and Pressure, sound becomes a decision tool, not an impulse. In Volume 5, Bow Hunting Execution, we're talking about close range strategy so you can finish your encounters. And in Volume 6, Late Season and Post-Rut, we're talking about how elk shift after the rut and how to adapt when others quit. This is a system built for consistency. This isn't theory. It's a structured system to help you find elk, read country, and make confident decisions every season. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 50% off at backboneunlimited.com. The transition zone is the specific terrain a bull moves through between his bed and his feed. It's the most efficient, most concealed route available to that animal, usually a timbered finger connecting a bedding bench to a feed drainage below it, sometimes a saddle between two drainages, sometimes the inside shadow line along a timber edge above an open meadow, where the trees end but the bull can still move parallel to the opening without fully stepping out. That zone almost always has a pinch point as well, a narrow section of terrain that funnels the movement, a saddle that's 40 yards wide before it drops into the basin below, a creek crossing with soft banks on both sides, the inside corner where a timberline bends before it descends towards the meadow. That's where tracks are deep and consistent. That's where the trail's worn enough to see from 30 yards. That's your kill zone. Find it on a map first by drawing the line between the confirmed bedding terrain and the confirmed feeding area. The path of least resistance connecting those 2 points where the bull is walking. Now, before you sit a transition zone, confirm the pattern is running. Glass the feeding area from a high vantage at last light. Watch for elk moving out of the timber into the open. Pay attention to which edge of the timber they step from. That entry point is usually a couple hundred yards from where they've been bedding. Note the time they step out. Note the direction they came from. Don't be in a hurry to get closer. What you learn from 600 yards with binoculars is worth more than what you blow up by walking in too soon. The next morning, before first light, get into the timber behind that entry point. Find the trail. Check for tracks in soft ground. You want to see both directions, which tells you the bull used this route coming down in the evening and going back up in the morning. Check for fresh poop on the trail. Fresh rubs with light-colored exposed wood that hasn't dried yet tell you that bull is using that spot right now, not 3 weeks ago. And this also doesn't have to be quite this narrow, right? We have transition zones that are hundreds of yards long, and we don't know exactly where they're going to come through, but it still allows you to set up at one end, the best wind end of that transition zone, and be in position to pull those elk across. Now, one evening of observation from a distance and one careful morning of reading sign can give you more usable information than a week of blind calling. So don't rush that step. The setup you're building is the one that closes the tag. Once your pattern's confirmed, you know where that transition zone is. Your job shifts from scouting to positioning. Get into position with good wind at first light. Set up 40 to 60 yards off the trail, downwind with a clear shooting lane into the pinch point or the timber edge he's going to step through. Then stop moving, get quiet. This bull is going to walk through this zone whether you're there or not. Your only job is to not disrupt the pattern before he does. If you feel the urge to call, try to resist it, right? Maybe one soft cow mew at most every now and then, right? That's the entire calling sequence. You're not running an escalation. You're intercepting an animal already moving on a path you found. Anything you add to that equation is a variable you don't control. And right now, you don't need variables. You just need patience. Silent bulls move on their own schedule. Bulls heading to feed are typically leaving their beds in the last 90 minutes of legal light. Bulls heading back to bed are moving at first light and getting into cover by 9 or 10 a.m. Those are your windows. So you've got to be in position before either one of those starts out. You're not going to slip in there at 8 o'clock and expect it to work, right? That's too late. A bull returning from his bed is alert. He's going to detect you before you ever see him if you're on your feet. It's just as bad as walking into a bedding area. A silent bull didn't disappear. He just stopped talking. His biology still requires food. He's still sleeping somewhere specific, and there's a path between those two places that he's going to walk every single day, whether he's bugling or not. Find the feed, find the bed, find that transition zone between them. If this episode made you realize you need a better elk plan this season, don't just watch another video and hope it all comes together. Build your plan right now. If you want to study my full system on your own, start with my elk hunting series of ebooks. If you want daily guidance, accountability, and a place to ask questions as season gets closer, join me on Team Backbone. If you want my eyes on your actual hunt plan, your maps, access, terrain, pressure points, wind, thermals, and strategy, book an elk hunt plan audit with me and I'll help you get it tightened up before season. If the missing piece is your body, your legs, your lungs, or your ability to handle mountain miles in a heavy pack, check out my Backbone Unlimited training plans. It's never too early or late to get started. And if nutrition is where you need more structure, getting leaner, fueling long days, or building a better in-season food plan, check out my nutrition plans. The hunters who are ready in September for talking bulls or silent bulls are the ones who start tightening their plan now. So go to backboneunlimited.com, choose the path that fits where you are, and I hope you get it tightened up. Thanks for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll see you in the comments. You know I read and respond to all of them. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.